Yo, what up, guys? It's Derp here with another video about the IronMace vs. Nexon court case. This video should be much shorter than the last one, as I just want to do a quick overview of the official declarations that Mr. Choi, Terence, and Aaron J. Moss sent in, along with their motion for dismissal. I already covered the motion for dismissal in my last video, so if you want to watch that, just feel free to pop into the last video. I'll leave a link in the description below. There's a lot of juicy info in here that could drastically affect the court case in the United States should it proceed. And some of you may have already watched me read through and cover this live, but there's a little bit more info here now that I've kind of pieced some things together and given some of this more thought, and even spoken with other people, including people in like the gaming and movie industries and stuff like that, as well as like book publishing, which is my world. Um, so I've talked to more people and kind of given this a little bit more insight. But before I jump into the video, I really want to give a massive shout out to all of you guys, everyone who's been watching my videos, leaving comments, and subscribing. Because of all of you guys, I was recently accepted in the YouTube partnership program, and that could really, like, being able to monetize this channel could drastically affect my life, right? Just being able to even make some of the money back that I'm investing in the channel would be huge, right? And that doesn't happen without all of you guys, and this means now that I can add members only content. I could add custom emojis to the channel. I could do all kinds of other cool stuff. It also means that I'm going to be streaming a lot more and offering ways that you guys can kind of support the channel directly through the YouTube page. But I'll save that for more in depth for an official announcement. And for now, I just kind of want to say thank you guys all so much. Your support is greatly appreciated, and you know, this has an opportunity to seriously change my life for the better. I also wanted to give a huge personal shout out to one of a huge supporter of mine, my buddy Gizzard of the Ninth. Huge fan of mine apparently, and thank you. I mean, I can't even. I like having fans. I can't even. That's incredible. And thank you guys for watching and supporting. Right, buddy. Like, you're awesome, man. Thanks. I hope you really keep on appreciating these videos. I hope you keep watching. And if you have any questions, comments, just let me know in the comments. So, um, but yeah, let's get right to the video. Let's kind of get what we came here for, right? The sweet court drama. And as always, there's going to be the TLDR at the end. So if you want to skip all this, this one shouldn't be too long. But if you want to skip it all, cut to like the last 4 minutes of the video, and you'll get a TLDR. So what is a declaration? In short, a declaration is usually made whenever a plaintiff or defendant puts forward a motion. In this case, the motion for dismissal was put forward. So all of the defendants and their lawyers put their declarations in, like a sworn statement. And yeah, it's a sworn statement that accompanies the motion and explains why they think it's applicable to the case. Dismissals also usually include some sort of evidence-based statements in hopes that it helps the courts rule in their favor. One thing that is extremely important to remember is that declarations are all sworn statements, and that means that every person who signs off on it, including the lawyers or the defendants themselves, everybody who signs off on it is doing so under the threat of perjury. So this is like, if you lie on this, it's exactly like lying in court, right? And if the courts find out that they lied, they could be held criminally liable and civilly liable for fines, damages, all that kind of stuff. But why are these important? Well, a declaration can have a significant role in helping the judge decide, which way they side, to approve the dismissal, to not approve the dismissal. All of this stuff also gets recorded into evidence. All of these sworn statements get recorded into evidence, and the judge is going to read all this stuff over. And they're going to assume that this is all true unless they're notified that it's not, in which case whoever lied in their testimony is in a lot of trouble. But yeah, it can also give a lot of insight into the case itself, as well as the timeline, situations, and settings of the issue being litigated. In this case, it gives us, and more importantly the judge, some insight into how Nexon was treating the development of P3, as well as how they treated the staff and other projects. It also contains a copy of Nexon's employment contract, which is huge. It's in Korea, and I haven't had a chance to get it translated yet, but I do plan on it. Oh, why didn't this go into dark mode? But yeah, I'm currently trying to get the employment contract locally translated in English by a trusted source, and if I can, I'll make a video on that. We should also be receiving the response to all this from Nexon soon, and when that comes out, I'll probably end up making a video about that if there's anything noteworthy in it. But let's get into the meat of it. What do these declarations say? Well, there's a lot in here, and in total, there's 3 that are really important. So roughly 50 pages of information. I read them all on live stream. I'll link it below, but instead of kind of wasting 45 minutes of everybody's time, I'll just get to what I think is the most relevant points. And so this is all from Terence's declaration. For the first 3 years of Terence's employment at Nexon, so 2018 to 2021, every single project that he worked on, him and his team worked on, was canceled by the studio. So for the first 3 years of Terry's employment, they didn't release a single project. All of them were canceled or scrapped or shelved, right? Terence was also a former founding member of ThingSoft, which Nexon purchased and then disbanded and siphoned off all the talent, which is very important for later because there's lots of examples of this happening. When he started working at Nexon, he signed an employment contract as is, meaning that it cannot be changed or modified. This contract had stipulations in it that said if any lawsuits arose from his employment, they would be handled in Korea. Super important to the dismissal because that's what they're citing to get the case dismissed, mostly. He was also one of the lead designers on P3. He worked very closely with Mr. Choi. He claims that for most of P3's life, which was only around 11 months, there were no more than 10 people assigned to it. They only bolstered the team to 20, like right before canceling it. And then Nexon slowed the development of P3 due to bureaucracy and a lack of faith in the project. So that's all pretty huge news and changes a lot of stuff in the case. And this is all sworn testimony, so this is all either a lie or either this is all either 100% true or he's lying and could possibly go to jail. So I don't think he's going to risk going to jail just to lie to the judge and make stuff up. But what did Mr. Choi say? He signed the same agreement as Terence. He also signed an acknowledgement of company IP contract, and that contract itself ordered him to delete company files when he quits or is fired. And if we remember from one of the earlier videos, Nexon is citing him deleting this information as part of their lawsuit, right? So, but their contracts, he's just followed the contract and is doing what he was told, right? He was the project director for P3. He was the lead for less than a year because the whole project wasn't even around for 11 months. And he was not given sufficient manpower to complete P3 due to, according to Nexon's goals and standards. This also confirms Terry's claim that 10 people or less were usually working on the project. So, like, if they really planned on getting it released in a quick time frame, why did they only have 10 people on it when there's thousands of people working at developers working at Nexon? And several related projects to P3 were canceled, according to Mr. Choi, and several projects around P3 were canceled. So Nexon just started canceling a ton of projects around that time. P3 was a first-person fantasy battle royale with no extraction mechanics, which is kind of opposes what everything that Nexon's been saying up till this point. And then when he left Nexon, there was no clear vision established by Nexon on how they wanted to proceed with Dark and Darker. So in essence, they didn't even know what direction they wanted to take the game in. And when he left, he deleted everything Nexon related from his personal electronics, as instructed by the company's IP contract. And then no one at IronMace, he claims that no one at IronMace knew of, used, or accessed any Nexon trade secrets at all. So that their two declarations are the most important. But what I think is also kind of funny is what Aaron J. Moss said. Apparently had a telephone meeting with Nexon's lawyer to inform them of this dismissal and Mr. Choi and Terrence's claims. He explained that Nexon's contract ordered all lawsuits between former and current Nexon employees to be handled in Korea. Nexon asked him for citation and a copy of the contract, which I think is funny because shouldn't they have a copy of their own contracts on hand? And then Aaron emailed them and faxed them a copy of Mr. Choi's signed contract with Nexon. And Nexon basically said, okay, we got all this information. We're going to oppose this dismissal, which obviously they're going to oppose it because it eats up more time and billable hours, right? So what does all this mean? In my opinion, these declarations paint a pretty clear picture that Nexon has a long history of mishandling and abandoning projects, as well as buying up smaller studios to absorb their talent and IP. You could see this with the studio that published Dave the Diver. They're buying up all of these smaller studios right now, and either destroying their IP and saving it for later, or releasing some and then siphoning off all of the talented devs. Right, that's pretty commonplace for a lot of larger studios. Yeah, they're abandoning projects as well as buying up smaller studios to absorb their talent and intellectual property. Based on what I know of larger game studios, I have friends who work for Bethesda, and I have friends who used to work for Blizzard, and so now Blizzard Activision. I have friends who work all across the gaming industry. And I've also worked with large book publishers. You know, I'm an author, and I have friends who own book publishers, right? So my friend, his sister also used to work in the movie and television industry, as like a executive assistant, and has some stories about this kind of behavior, right? So this is fairly common practice across most art forms. Like I'm talking, even as far like painting, writing, video games, music. This is super common. Larger studios will buy smaller studios to acquire talent and IP, and then what they'll do is anything that they don't think it will be immediately profitable, they'll stash for later just in case somebody else makes something similar. We see these lawsuits almost exactly like the one between Nexon and IronMace in movie studios, book publishers, and other industries all the time. What they'll do in movies specifically and television, they'll buy up scripts or entire small studios, and sometimes they'll even hire writers just to claim their intellectual property. They then shelve this intellectual property in case somebody creates something similar. And then when somebody eventually does, these larger studios will sue the shit out of them and force a settlement because they own the intellectual property, right? Example of this in the movie industry are noted in screencraft.org, which is they're associated with SAG, the Screen Actors Guild. So what happens after you sell a screenplay? Movie studios buy ideas with no intention of ever releasing them, then shelve them for leverage against other studios all the time. This happens in a lot of industries, including video games. An example of this can actually be seen in the acquisition, which is mentioned in these declarations. An example of this can be seen in the acquisition of PopCap Games, and PopCap Games by EA. EA bought PopCap Games, siphoned off all of their talent, and then shelved all of their IP and saved it for later. It seems like something similar happened, as mentioned in the declaration, with Terence and his former company ThingSoft. So Terence used to own a company, or was a founder of a company called ThingSoft, and Nexon bought them. And then they shut ThingSoft down and stole all of their IP and took all of their talented devs and team members. So in my opinion, and granted this is 100% speculation right now from like this point forward, in my opinion, this is 100% speculation. It also happened with P3. I think Mr. Choi and Terence had a great idea for a video game. They got the green light from Nexon to start development. However, Nexon had never had any intention of finishing it and gave them minimal staff, so they couldn't. And this can kind of be seen by the size of their team, you know, and how their early phases of development went. A team of 10 people or less from a company with thousands of devs is hilariously small, and almost is kind of can be used as evidence that they doomed it to fail from the beginning, right? Especially when you consider how time consuming it is to develop games in an environment like Nexon where there's so much bureaucracy. They obviously, in my opinion, did not have any faith in Mr. Choi's idea from the very beginning. And again, that's just really my opinion. So, what's the TLDR? Terence, Mr. Choi, or SDF, as he's known on Discord, and Aaron J. Moss, who's IronMace's attorney, all sent in sworn statements with their motion for dismissal. In these statements, they made a bunch of bold claims under the threat of perjury. If true, they paint a picture that Nexon never really had any intention of finishing P3. It's not a very similar game. Nexon really never had any final vision for the game, and it wasn't even really planned to be in the same genre as Dark and Darker. So to me, it seems, from the outside looking in, it seems like a simple case of IP appropriation for the express purpose of filing a lawsuit, exactly like the ones we were seeing in the United States and Korea. To make matters worse for Nexon, IronMace is using the same exact employment contract that Nexon cited in their lawsuit against IronMace. So, and they're now using that same contract to try to get the case in the United States dismissed on a clause that stated that all lawsuits between former and current Nexon employees would be handled in Korea. So that's basically it. I mean, it doesn't really change anything for the timeline. It doesn't really change anything for EA, but it does paint a lot more. We have a lot clearer of a picture for what's actually going on in this case, right? But yeah, I hope you guys like the shorter video, and I hope you guys like the content I'm making. I'm trying to cut these down to only the most important information. I truly love doing the research anyway. And I'm just amazed that all of you guys are enjoying these videos and enjoying me breaking this stuff down for you guys. I know this video doesn't have much of an update, but to me, it's one of the most interesting reads of the case. Because it's given me so much insight into how stuff at Nexon was actually functioning, according to Mr. Choi and Terence, and their working conditions at Nexon and how they conduct business. You know, it kind of proves that they're just another soulless, large company, just like any other mega business, right? That's my opinion and speculation on my part. But yeah, thank you guys all for watching. It means the world to me. I love hearing your thoughts and opinions and concerns. And I like hearing your guys' ideas in the comments. So just, yeah, feel free to hit me up in the comments. Feel free to join the Discord. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. If you really love the content, please consider becoming a guild member. You can sign up through Patreon or through YouTube now. And signing up to the channel's membership has a lot of perks. All kinds of cool benefits, including helping me buy a new mic, second monitor, and better camera so I can make better content. But yeah, thanks again. Love all you guys. Hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day. I'm out. Peace.